last point about Marx, I do want to circle back to something I cut you off while you were starting to say earlier. Jake, if we have the first of those Peterson clips from 2019.
How did I prepare for this? I familiarized myself to the degree that it was possible with Slavoj Zizek's work, and that wasn't that possible because he has a lot of work and he's a very original thinker, and this debate was put together in relatively short order. And what I did instead was return to what I regarded as the original cause of all the trouble, let's say, which was the Communist Manifesto. And what I attempted to do, because that's Marx, and we're here to talk about Marxism, let's say, and what I tried to do was read it. And to read something, you don't just follow the words and follow the meaning, but you take apart the sentences and you ask yourself at this level of phrase and at the level of sentence and at the level of paragraph, is this true? Are there counter arguments that can be put forward that are credible? Is this solid thinking? And I have to tell you, and I'm not trying to be flippant here, that I have rarely read a tract. Now, I read it when I was 18. It was a long time ago, right? That's 40 years ago. But I've rarely read a tract that made as many errors per sentence, conceptual errors per sentence, as the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah, so the part that should just jump out at you like flashing red letters is a few seconds before the end of that, when he says, I read it when I was 18, 40 years ago, which, like, look, man, not everybody who writes about something has to be like a scholar of that thing. It's fine to do intellectual division of labor. You know, you don't have to be poring over the Bible in Hebrew and Greek, for example. That would be good to at least glance at some things written by people who have. You know, that's
he does claim that expertise. Not like he discusses the language as if he has that knowledge, but he clearly doesn't. Just thought I'd pop that in there.
Yeah, so, you know, I think you could bring new insights to bear, you know, even if you're an autodidact, whatever, all true, right? But like, when he said that, I really just want to underline, he'd been spending years as one of the world's angriest and most prominent critics of what he called Marxism. And, you know, just to maybe bore the point home to the point of being slightly unpleasant about it, I found this nice website that estimates how long it would take the average reader to get through a book based on word count and, you know, how many words a minute most people could do. And it estimated about 48 minutes for the Communist Manifesto. So, you know, man spent less than an hour reading Marx in the last 40 years by his own admission. That is a godlike level of self-confidence that you'd spend all this time talking about it. But where all this comes up, right, is that Matt, I remember this is actually the page, like the photograph of a page from the book that inspired this episode. You had posted this page from We Who Wrestle with God, where Peterson describes what he thinks that Marx thinks about the bourgeoisie. Let's take a second on this. What does Peterson say in We Who Wrestle with God that Marx says about the bourgeoisie?
Yeah, he basically says that Marx is not willing to give the bourgeoisie any credit for all the wondrous developments of the modern world. That invariably he paints them as exploiters, people who are oppressing the working class, and ultimately that the world will just be better off without the bourgeoisie, and we should hope that that end will come as quickly as possible. And what's kind of remarkable about this is even reading the Communist Manifesto, which, as you point out, is not a long work, or even a very complicated one, although it's quite rich, right? You would come away with the conclusion that actually Marx's position was appropriately a lot more dialectical than that, because at least a third of the book is almost this rhapsodizic kind of pan to all the wondrous things that the bourgeoisie has accomplished. As Terry Eagleton pointed out, Marx thought that the bourgeoisie was in many ways the most revolutionary class that ever existed, and was fulsome of praise for everything that they had accomplished historically. Now,
yeah. So Peterson says, this is the quote, I found it. Karl Marx is keen to the core, construing society as nothing but a battleground of power, assuming any qualitative judgment regarding the value of comparative sacrifice is a game rigged by the victors. He failed completely and purposefully to separate wheat from chaff in the totalizing condemnation of the bourgeoisie, regarding them in consequences of their success only as parasites, predators, and thieves, and give no credit whatsoever for the wealth and stable societal structure they produced as a result of their conscientious, diligent, honest, and productive labor, right? In other words, right, so I says, completely and purposefully failed to separate the wheat from the chaff in the totalizing condemnation, no credit whatsoever, which is amazing because, like, in these pages that you're talking about, right, Marx says, here's the quote from the manifesto, that actually I think we have this might have this as a graphic anyway. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. So the bourgeoisie has accomplished wonders far surpassing Egyptian pyramids, Roman aqueducts, and Gothic cathedrals, has conducted expeditions that put in the shade all the former exoduses of nations and crusades. The bourgeoisie cannot exist without constantly revolutionizing the instruments of production and thereby the relations of production, and with them the whole relations of society. Conservation of the old modes of production in unaltered form was, on the contrary, the first condition of existence for all earlier industrial classes. Constant revolutionizing production, uninterrupted disturbance of all social conditions, everlasting uncertainty and agitation distinguish the bourgeois epoch from all earlier ones. All fixed, fast-frozen relations with their train of ancient and venerable prejudices and opinions are swept away. All new-formed ones become antiquated before they can ossify. All that is solid melts into air. Now, there is a big difference here, but, it's true that Peterson has somehow convinced himself that capitalism is a form, is an engine of social stability. And, Marx certainly doesn't think that. Neither, by the way, do a lot of your brighter conservatives over the years who realize that capitalism is one of the most profoundly destabilizing social forces that's ever existed, right? In fact, that's why there have been plenty of conservative thinkers who've been ambivalent about capitalism. But
yeah, I should add also, right? A lot of this book is a deeply anxious set of ruminations about why tradition, why religion is fading from the modern world. And had Peterson paid any actual attention to this passage, including the next part where he talks about how all that is holy is profaned, and man is at last compelled to face with sober senses his real conditions of life as relations with his kind, he might get a few hints as to how capitalism, like a lot of conservative thinkers have pointed out, might play a role in undermining the religious traditions that he places such value on.
Yeah, I remember many years ago in Miami, I was sitting on the couch watching TV with a friend and good friend back then, and there was some particularly bizarre and absurd commercial came on TV, and he turned to me. We were always arguing about socialism, and he was like, "Ben," he made this like weird existentialist argument for capitalism. He was like, "Look, reality, life is basically meaningless, and with any system but capitalism, it wouldn't be shoved in our face like this all the time, and we might forget." So
yeah, just like the main point, like you can ask yourself whether or not Tinkerbell the porn fairy is such a ubiquitous part of our culture because the postmodern neo-Marxists have decided to pornographize our world, or whether it's because porn is worth tens of billions of dollars per year to the right people, and they want to make sure that it's produced en masse so that they can make money from it.
Exactly. So we'll get to Tinkerbell the porn fairy, but I do just want to note that the gap between Peterson saying that he failed completely and purposefully to separate the wheat from the chaff and the totalizing condemnation of the bourgeoisie, no credit whatsoever for their wealth. It's like, and here we have Marx, saying that bourgeoisie has accomplished wonders far surpassing Egyptian pyramids, Roman aqueducts, and Gothic cathedrals. Is really a hell of a gap. And I think it does get into the sort of the most fundamental misunderstanding that Peterson has of the sort of core of Marxism, right? What makes it, in fact, I mean, certainly.
Well, interestingly, there when you talk about the core of Marxism, he claims that Marx is Cain to the core,
Yes.
and I find that really interesting because what's he doing there? He's demonizing Marx. That's his strategy, to dismiss Marx rather than engage with Marx. Just always, align him with the bad characters in the Bible, or it's satanic, or and so but this is part of the larger grift of aligning his ideas and his dismissal of Marx and everything else with this mystical aura of the Bible as this magical, or maybe that's not putting it nicely, but like a revered or respected tradition, and saying, well, my ideas align with that and the ideas of Western civilization. And of course, what he fails to acknowledge, not only the complexities and other the kind of ambiguities of that Western tradition, which I would say also include Marx. Marx himself is a product of Western civilization. He's he emerged from that. So you can't just say, well, he's not part of it and he's actually a Cain or the devil or whatever, right?
You have been watching free public content from Give Them an Argument. To access every single episode of the show, the main show on Monday nights, all of the streams, all of the debate breakdowns, all of the patron-exclusive post-games on Monday nights, all of the patron-exclusive bonus episodes every week, and much, much more, go to patreon.com/Ben Burgis. I cannot resist ending this with, don't be foolish.